ready to learn about density today? Are you ready to play a density guessing game? Well, you've come to the right spot.
Have you ever wondered why things sink or float? Well, that is due to a thing that scientists call density. What is density, you ask? Well, density is nothing but mass, and mass is the amount of items or atoms packed into an object. Everybody has mass. Now, we shouldn't confuse mass with weight. Weight is the Earth's gravitational forces pulling on an object, while mass is the amount of atoms stuffed or packed inside said object. Take, for instance, our gingerbread man. He's about 100 pounds and about 50 grams of mass or density. Well, he's living life. He wants to lose a little weight, so he decides to be a smaller, healthier version of himself. Well, doesn't he look nice? Look, he's slim and he's trim. So he's lost about 25 pounds. So now he's 75 pounds, but guess what? He's still 50 grams of mass or density. He cannot lose his density. It will always be there. The only way he can lose his density is to literally lose half of himself. For density purposes, you can never, ever lose your density, but you can lose weight.
Now on to the matter of our density guessing game. Remember, density is the amount of matter or atoms packed into an object. An object is more dense when it contains more matter or more atoms. That's what makes it heavy, that's what makes it sink. And a less dense item, of course, has less atoms or less matter packed into a spot, and that's what makes it float. Now that we know what density is, let's get on to the game.
For the game, we are going to need a few items. On the table, I have a container of sodium chloride, which is table salt. I have food coloring, red, blue, and yellow. I have water and water containers. I have a measuring spoon to measure out the salt, a large spoon for stirring the liquid. I've got 4 test tubes and 3 pipettes. Well, these are all the items we need for the game. Let the games begin.
Now that you know how everything is set up, let's play the game. Now, for a quick recap, I made 3 containers of water. I added the sodium. I can't tell you how much because remember, this is a density guessing game and we're going to figure out which water is the most dense or has the most sodium. Remember, dense items sink, or more dense items sink, less dense items float. So, are you ready to play the game? Great, let's get started.
First, I'll start with my red. I will take my pipette, I will draw some up, and I will put some red into our test tube. There it is. There is our red. Next, I will draw on some yellow. And I will gently put our yellow in. Oops. Well, as you can see, our yellow is floating on top of our red. What does that mean? Yep, you guessed it. Our yellow is less dense than our red. Right now, our red is more dense than the yellow. All right, let us go on to blue. Let us see where blue is going to end up in this equation. Once again, I'm going to do this really slow, because if to do it fast, we'll just mix the waters and you will not see. What is happening? I believe our blue is sinking to the bottom. Let's add a little bit more and let us see. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Can you see all 3 layers? Can you see each layer floating on top of each other? The yellow, the red, and the blue. Just by looking at these floating layers, can you guess which color is the most dense? Did you think it was the blue? Well, why? Is it because the blue is on the bottom? Well, you guessed correctly. The blue solution contains the most salt, thus it's more dense than the other 2. Red also contains salt, but not as much as the blue, so it is less dense, so it will float on top of the blue. The yellow contains salt as well, but not as much as the other 2, so it will float on top. So we have our magical floating layers. Now let's recap. Remember, the more dense an item is, it will sink. The less dense an item is, it will float. Remember, density is the amount of matter or atoms packed into an object, which is what we see here in our density game, or our floating waters. Our blue sunk to the bottom because it contains the most amount of sodium, which means it is more concentrated, meaning it is more dense. Our red also contains salt, but not as much as our blue. So it will float on top of the blue because it is less dense than the blue. Our yellow contains sodium as well, but is least dense of the three. So it will float on top of the red, which is floating on top of the blue. Did we understand our density guessing game? That is great. Do we understand density now? That is perfect. Remember, density is the amount of atoms or matter packed inside of an object. Density creates objects or makes objects sink or float. Did you have a lot of fun? Did you like playing the guessing game? Would you like to recreate this at home? Well, you can go right ahead. It is very simple. All you need is water and some food coloring and something to dissolve into water. So you can use sugar or table salt, flour, or baking soda. You put the food coloring in because it's very hard to look at clear layers and try to guess which layer is which is why we use the food coloring in our layers. Well, that's it for today, kiddos. So go home, be a mad scientist, and have a lot of fun.